Welcome to the Quiet Body. It's lovely to have you here tonight. Tonight, we're exploring one of the most misunderstood companions in human experience. What is anxiety, really? Is it an enemy attacking you from within, or could it be something else? Something quieter, even protective? Imagine your brain as a gentle watchdog, always scanning for threats, always trying to keep you safe. Sometimes it gets a little overenthusiastic, maybe a little too vigilant, but it's never trying to harm you. Tonight, we'll explore this together, gently, with curiosity and compassion. I'll try not to make tonight's topic so thought-provoking that it keeps you awake. But if it does, at least you'll understand why your body reacts the way it does, why your heart races, why your thoughts spiral, why your chest tightens, and maybe, just maybe, you'll feel a little kinder toward yourself. A small price to pay for a restless night. Before we drift too far into the science, I'd be very grateful if you gave this video a like or subscribed if you haven't already. It really helps other people who need this kind of calm find their way here, and it means the world to me. I'm also curious, where are you right now? Are you lying in bed, trying to quiet racing thoughts, or maybe sitting somewhere peaceful, just looking for understanding? What time is it in your part of the world? Leave a comment below and let me know. It helps us all feel a little less alone in those quiet hours. Get comfortable. Let your shoulders drop just a little. If you're holding tension anywhere, in your jaw, your neck, your hands, just let it soften gently. There's no rush tonight. Let your thoughts slow down, like watching leaves drift on a quiet stream. They're there, moving softly past, but they don't need to pull you along with them. Okay, settle in a little deeper. Take a slow breath if you'd like. If you're ready, let's gently begin. Tonight, we're exploring what anxiety really is, not as a monster to fight, but as a signal to understand. We'll look at why your brain might be trying to help you, even when it doesn't feel that way. And perhaps, by the end, you'll see it a little differently. What exactly is anxiety? It's a question that sounds simple, almost too simple. But the answer, like anxiety itself, has layers. Tonight, we're not going to talk about anxiety the way a medical textbook would. We're not going to list symptoms in cold, clinical terms, or make you feel like you're studying for an exam. Instead, we're going to explore anxiety the way you might explore a quiet forest path, gently, curiously, without rushing to any destination. Because here's the truth that often gets lost in all the medical definitions and diagnostic criteria. Anxiety isn't your enemy. It never was. It's a part of your biology, as ancient and fundamental as your heartbeat. And like your heartbeat, it's trying to keep you alive. Let's start with what anxiety was designed to do back when your ancestors were walking across open grasslands, when danger wasn't an abstract concept, but something with teeth and claws. Imagine, for a moment, that you're standing at the edge of a clearing thousands of years ago. The sun is setting. The shadows are getting longer, and somewhere, just beyond your line of sight, something rustles in the tall grass. Your body responds instantly. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tense. Your breathing quickens. Your senses sharpen. Every part of you becomes alert, focused, ready. This is anxiety doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's your body's alarm system, and right now, it's keeping you safe. It's saying, pay attention, be ready, survive. That rushing feeling in your chest, that tightness in your throat, that overwhelming sense that something is wrong. These aren't glitches in your system. They're features. They're your body preparing you for action, for survival, for getting through whatever danger might be ahead. For most of human history, this system worked beautifully. The threats were real and immediate. A predator, a rival tribe, a dangerous storm. And once the threat passed, the anxiety passed too. Your body returned to baseline. The alarm turned off. But here's where things get complicated. Here's where that ancient, protective system starts to feel less like a friend and more like something exhausting. Because the world changed. Dramatically. Rapidly. In ways your biology hasn't quite caught up with. You don't live on a grasslands anymore. The threats you face aren't predators with teeth. They're emails you haven't answered. They're presentations you have to give. They're relationships that feel uncertain. They're bills you're worried about paying. They're futures you can't predict. They're pandemics and political tensions and climate change and 100 other things that feel vast and uncontrollable. And your brain, that beautiful, protective, ancient brain of yours, is still using the same alarm system it used 10,000 years ago. It's still trying to keep you safe. But now, instead of sounding the alarm for a few intense minutes while you run from a lion, it's sounding the alarm constantly, chronically, endlessly, for threats that don't have clear beginnings or endings. That's what anxiety is in the modern world. It's an ancient protection system trying to navigate a landscape it wasn't designed for. So when we ask, what is anxiety? Here's one way to think about it. Anxiety is information. It's your body's way of saying, something feels uncertain here. Something feels out of your control. Something needs your attention. Sometimes that information is useful. If you're about to step into traffic, anxiety screams at you to stop, and you listen, and you stay safe. If you have an important deadline, anxiety nudges you to prepare, and you get your work done. But sometimes that information gets confused. Sometimes the alarm sounds when there's no real danger. Sometimes it sounds all the time, even when you're lying in bed, trying to rest, trying to find peace. And that's when anxiety stops feeling like protection and starts feeling like suffering. But even then, even when it feels overwhelming and exhausting and completely irrational, your body is still trying to protect you. It's just protecting you from threats that aren't there, or threats that are so abstract and long-term that the immediate physical alarm response doesn't actually help. Think of it like a smoke alarm that goes off every time you burn toast. The alarm isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do, detect smoke. It's just a little too sensitive for the situation. The solution isn't to hate the alarm or rip it off the ceiling. The solution is to understand it, adjust your relationship with it, and maybe open a window. Because anxiety isn't just one thing. It's not just worry, though worry is often part of it. It's a whole body experience, a cascade of sensations and thoughts and impulses that can feel overwhelming. In your body, anxiety might feel like a racing heart, tightness in your chest, shallow breathing, tension in your shoulders and jaw, a knot in your stomach, trembling hands, dizziness, feeling too hot or too cold, muscle aches, fatigue, or a strange, restless energy that makes it impossible to sit still. In your mind, anxiety might feel like constant worry, intrusive thoughts that loop endlessly, difficulty concentrating, a sense of impending doom, catastrophic thinking where your brain jumps to the worst possible outcome, racing thoughts that won't slow down, or a foggy, disconnected feeling like you're not quite present in your own life. In your behavior, anxiety might show up as avoiding situations that make you nervous, procrastinating on important tasks, seeking constant reassurance from others, checking things repeatedly to make sure they're okay, snapping at people you care about, withdrawing from social situations, or using substances like alcohol or caffeine to try to manage the feelings. And here's what's important to understand. All of these experiences are real. They're not in your head in the dismissive way people sometimes use that phrase. They're happening in your body, in your nervous system, in the intricate dance of hormones and neurotransmitters that keep you functioning. When you feel anxious, there are measurable physiological changes happening inside you. Your body is responding to what it perceives as a threat. The fact that the threat might not be objectively dangerous doesn't make your experience less real. Your body doesn't know the difference between a lion and a looming deadline. It just knows something feels wrong. Prepare, protect, survive. So often, when people experience anxiety, their first instinct is to fight it, to push it away, to be angry at themselves for feeling this way. I shouldn't be anxious about this. Other people handle this just fine. What's wrong with me? But what if, instead of fighting it, we try to understand it? What if we approached our anxiety with curiosity instead of judgment? Because when you understand that anxiety is your body's attempt to protect you, even when it's misfiring, even when it's exhausting, it becomes a little easier to be kind to yourself. You're not broken. Your brain isn't defective. You're experiencing a very human response to a very complex world. And that understanding, that shift from anxiety is my enemy to anxiety is my body trying to help me, can change everything. One more thing worth understanding. Anxiety exists on a spectrum. It's not binary, not something you either have or don't have. We all experience anxiety. Every single person who has ever lived has felt that flutter in their chest, that twist in their stomach, that racing mind. For some people, anxiety is occasional. It shows up before a job interview, or when they're running late, or when something unexpected happens. It's uncomfortable, but it passes. It doesn't interfere much with daily life. For others, anxiety is more persistent. It's there in the background most days, a low hum of worry and tension that colors everything. Maybe it makes social situations harder, or decision-making more exhausting, or sleep more elusive. And for some, anxiety can become so intense and overwhelming that it feels impossible to function. It might show up as panic attacks, sudden waves of terror that make your heart pound and your vision narrow, and convince you that something terrible is happening. It might show up as phobias, intense fears of specific things that logically you know are unlikely to hurt you, but emotionally feel unbearable. It might show up as constant, uncontrollable worry about everything and nothing, a mind that never stops spinning worst-case scenarios. Wherever you are on that spectrum, your experience is valid. Anxiety doesn't have to be severe to matter. Even mild anxiety can be exhausting when it's constant. Even occasional anxiety deserves compassion and understanding. When protection becomes pain, there's a moment in many people's lives when they realize their anxiety has crossed a line, when it stops being a helpful signal and starts being something that controls them. Maybe you start avoiding things you used to enjoy because they make you anxious. Maybe you find yourself saying no to opportunities, to experiences, to connections with people, all because the anxiety feels too big to face. Maybe you start organizing your entire life around try not to feel anxious. You develop rituals, routines, ways of checking and double-checking and controlling your environment. And for a little while, it might work. But then the anxiety finds new things to worry about, new ways to show up, and the safety you try to build feels fragile and temporary. Or maybe the anxiety just becomes part of the furniture of your life. You forget what it feels like to not be anxious. You start to believe that this is just who you are, that you're fundamentally more nervous, more worried, more fragile than other people. But here's what I want you to know. You're not fragile. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're experiencing what happens when a biological system designed for short bursts of intense alertness gets stuck in the on position. You're experiencing what happens when your brain's threat detection system becomes hypersensitive, when it starts seeing danger everywhere, even in safe places. And that's not your fault. It's not a personal failing. It's a pattern that can be understood, and more importantly, it's a pattern that can change. The gift hidden in anxiety. This might sound strange, but there's often something valuable hidden inside anxiety. Not the anxiety itself, but what it's pointing toward. Sometimes anxiety is telling you that something in your life genuinely isn't working. Maybe you're in a job that drains you, or a relationship that doesn't feel safe, or a living situation that keeps you on edge. The anxiety isn't the problem in these cases. It's the messenger. And if you can listen to what it's trying to tell you, if you can ask yourself, what is this anxiety pointing me toward? You might find that it's actually guiding you toward necessary changes. Other times, anxiety is pointing toward unprocessed emotions or experiences. Maybe there's grief you haven't let yourself feel, or anger you've been pushing down, or fear from something that happened years ago that you never fully dealt with. Anxiety can be what happens when these emotions don't have anywhere else to go. They build up, and they start leaking out as this generalized sense that something is wrong, even when you can't quite name what it is. And sometimes, anxiety is pointing toward deep, old beliefs you carry about yourself or the world. Beliefs like, I'm not safe, or I have to be perfect or people won't love me, or the world is a dangerous place and I always have to be on guard. These beliefs often form early in life, sometimes in response to real experiences that were scary or painful. And once they're there, they shape how you interpret everything that happens to you. Anxiety becomes the constant background noise of these beliefs, always whispering their warnings. Understanding what your anxiety is pointing toward doesn't make it go away instantly, but it changes your relationship with it. Instead of just trying to push it down or ignore it or power through it, you can start to listen to it. You can ask the questions. You can see it as information, even if it's information that comes wrapped in very uncomfortable sensations. So that's what anxiety is, in the gentlest terms I can offer. It's an ancient protection system, still active in your modern life. It's a signal that something feels uncertain or threatening, even when there's no immediate danger. It's a whole body experience that's deeply uncomfortable, but fundamentally human. And it's trying, in its own clumsy way, to keep you safe. Over the course of this journey tonight, we're going to explore why your brain creates anxiety, how it shows up in your body, and what you can do to work with it instead of against it. We're going to look at the science, yes, but we're going to look at it through the lens of compassion and understanding, not judgment. Because the goal here isn't to eliminate anxiety completely. That's not possible, and honestly, it wouldn't be desirable. Some amount of anxiety is adaptive, useful, even necessary. The goal is to help your nervous system find its way back to balance, to help you recognize when the alarm is sounding for a real threat versus when it's just being overly sensitive, to give you tools and understanding so that anxiety doesn't run your life. You deserve to feel calm in your own body. You deserve to move through the world without constant dread and worry. You deserve rest, peace, ease. And while the path there might take time, while it might require patience and practice and self-compassion, it is absolutely possible. We've talked about what anxiety is. Let's explore why your brain does this in the first place. Why does it sound false alarms? Why does it sometimes feel like your own mind is working against you? To understand that, we need to look inside your brain itself, at the ancient structures that govern fear and safety, and at the delicate balance that can so easily tip into overwhelm. So take a gentle breath, settle in a little deeper, and let's continue this exploration together. Why does your brain sound false alarms? If anxiety is supposed to protect you, why does it so often feel like it's working against you? Why does it activate when you're lying in bed, perfectly safe, with nothing chasing you? Why does it turn ordinary situations into sources of dread? To understand this, we need to look inside your brain, not in a clinical, textbook way, but gently, with curiosity. Because inside your skull, there's a conversation happening between different parts of your brain, and sometimes that conversation gets a little unbalanced. Think of your brain as having two main characters in the story of anxiety. There's the amygdala, which we can imagine as an overzealous guard, always watching for danger, always ready to sound the alarm. And there's the prefrontal cortex, a wise counselor sitting at the front of your brain, trying to assess situations rationally and calm things down when the guard gets too excited. These two parts of your brain are in constant communication, constantly negotiating what's dangerous and what's safe, what deserves your attention, and what could be ignored. And when this system is working well, it's beautiful. The guard spots potential threats. The counselor evaluates them calmly. And together, they help you navigate the world with appropriate caution, but without overwhelming fear. But when the system gets out of balance, when the guard becomes too sensitive and the counselor's voice gets drowned out, that's when anxiety takes over. The amygdala, your ancient alarm system. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure deep in your brain. It's ancient in evolutionary terms. It existed long before humans developed language, before we built cities, before we even walked upright. Its job, for millions of years, has been singular and crucial: detect threats and respond immediately. The amygdala is fast, incredibly fast. When information comes in through your senses, a copy of that information goes straight to your amygdala before it even reaches the parts of your brain responsible for conscious thought. This means your amygdala can trigger a fear response before you're consciously aware of what you're afraid of. This speed was life-saving for your ancestors. If there was a snake in the grass, your ancestors' amygdala would trigger them to jump back before their conscious mind even processed what they saw. The ones with fast amygdala survived. The ones who stopped to think about it, well, they didn't pass on their genes. So you inherited this lightning-fast threat detection system, and it's still operating at full speed in your modern life. The amygdala learns through experience, especially negative experience. Every time something scary or painful happens, your amygdala takes note. It forms associations, connections between certain situations and danger. If you had a panic attack in a crowded mall once, your amygdala might start associating crowds with danger. If you were rejected harshly by someone you cared about, your amygdala might start treating all vulnerability as threatening. And here's the challenge. The amygdala is better at learning fear than unlearning it. It's designed to be cautious, to err on the side of overprotection. Better to run from 10 false alarms than to ignore one real danger. That's the logic that kept your ancestors alive. But in your modern life, this means your amygdala can become hypersensitive, seeing threats everywhere, keeping you in a constant state of vigilance and fear. The prefrontal cortex, your voice of reason. If the amygdala was the only player in this game, you'd be afraid of everything all the time. Fortunately, you have the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is located at the very front of your brain, right behind your forehead. It's evolutionarily recent, the last part of the brain to develop both in human evolution and in your personal development. It doesn't fully mature until your mid-20s, which explains a lot about adolescence. This is your thinking brain. It's responsible for complex reasoning, planning, decision-making, emotional regulation, and something called cognitive reappraisal. That's a fancy term for your ability to look at a situation and think about it differently, to question your initial reaction, to put things in perspective. When your amygdala sounds the alarm, your prefrontal cortex is supposed to step in and ask, wait, is this actually dangerous? Or does it just feel dangerous? It can override the fear response when appropriate. It can tell your body, yes, your heart is racing, but you're not actually in danger. This is just a presentation. This is just a phone call. This is just a new situation. You're okay. The prefrontal cortex also helps you think about the future, imagine different outcomes, and plan how to respond to challenges. When it's working well, it gives you agency. It helps you feel like you have some control over your life, even in uncertain situations. But here's what's crucial to understand. The connection between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex is not fixed. It's dynamic. It changes based on your experiences, your stress levels, your habits, even your sleep and nutrition. When the balance tips, in a well-regulated nervous system, there's a healthy dialogue between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala can alert you to potential danger, and the prefrontal cortex can evaluate whether that danger is real and proportionate. But chronic stress, trauma, or prolonged anxiety can disrupt this balance. When you experience chronic stress, when your alarm system is activated repeatedly over weeks, months, or years, several things happen in your brain. The amygdala becomes more reactive. It grows more connections, becomes more easily activated. Think of it like a muscle that's been overworked. It becomes stronger at doing its job, which in this case means becoming stronger at detecting threats and triggering fear. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex becomes less effective. Chronic stress actually impairs the functioning of your prefrontal cortex. The connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala can weaken. It becomes harder for your wise counselor to calm down your overzealous guard. This is why anxiety can feel like a trap. The more anxious you are, the more your brain reinforces the patterns that create anxiety. Your amygdala gets better at being afraid. Your prefrontal cortex gets worse at calming you down. And the cycle continues. The discovery of the amygdala. It's worth pausing here to appreciate that we haven't always known this. The role of the amygdala in fear and anxiety wasn't understood until relatively recently in human history. In the 1930s, researchers Heinrich Klüver and Paul Bucy conducted experiments on monkeys. They removed parts of the monkey's temporal lobes, including the amygdala, and observed remarkable changes. The monkeys lost their fear responses. They would approach dangerous objects without hesitation. They couldn't recognize threats anymore. Later research built on this, gradually revealing that the amygdala isn't just involved in fear, it's central to it. It's the hub where sensory information about potential threats gets processed and where the fear response originates. By the 1990s and 2000s, brain imaging technology allowed researchers to watch the amygdala in action in living human brains. They could show people scary images or put them in stressful situations and watch the amygdala light up on the scans. They could also see how the prefrontal cortex would activate when people try to regulate their emotions, literally watching the conversation between these two brain regions in real time. This research transformed our understanding of anxiety from something vague and moral, a weakness of character, a failure of willpower, into something neurological and mechanical. Anxiety isn't a personality flaw. It's a pattern of brain activity, one that can be understood, measured, and most importantly, changed. Why this matters? Understanding this architecture of anxiety, this interplay between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex, changes everything about how you relate to your own experience. When you feel anxious, when your heart races and your thoughts spiral and everything feels overwhelming, you're not broken. Your amygdala is doing what it's designed to do. It's trying to protect you. It's just overreacting, responding to your stressful modern life as if every deadline, every social interaction, every uncertainty is a life or death threat. And when you struggle to calm yourself down, when logic doesn't seem to help and you can't just think your way out of it, that's not weakness either. Your prefrontal cortex might be impaired by chronic stress, or it might simply be overpowered by a very loud, very insistent amygdala. This isn't your fault. You didn't choose to have an overactive amygdala. You didn't decide to weaken the connection to your prefrontal cortex. These are patterns that developed in response to your experiences, your environment, your biology. But here's the hopeful part. These patterns can change. Your brain is plastic, malleable, capable of forming new connections throughout your life. The conversation between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex can be rebalanced. The guard can learn to relax a little. The counselor can learn to speak more clearly. We'll talk about how that happens, about the specific practices and understandings that can help restore balance. But first, we need to understand something else. How chronic stress rewires your brain. This is where the story gets both challenging and hopeful. Because your brain isn't static. It's constantly changing, adapting, rewiring itself based on your experiences. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, and it's both the reason anxiety can become entrenched and the reason it can be healed. When you experience stress repeatedly, when your amygdala fires again and again in response to perceived threats, your brain starts to physically change. The amygdala grows more connections, becomes more sensitive, more reactive. Studies using brain imaging have shown that people with chronic anxiety often have larger, more active amygdalas than people without anxiety. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, your voice of reason, becomes less active. The pathways between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, the communication channels that allow your rational mind to calm your fear response, can weaken. It's like the phone line between your guard and your counselor gets fuzzy, harder to hear. This is what chronic stress does. It tips the balance. It makes your brain better at being anxious and worse at being calm. And here's what makes this particularly difficult. Once this pattern is established, it can become self-perpetuating. Your sensitive amygdala perceives more threats. Each perceived threat activates your stress response. Each stress response further sensitizes your amygdala and further weakens your prefrontal cortex. The cycle continues, deepening the groove of anxiety in your brain. There's another player in this story worth mentioning, the hippocampus. This is the part of your brain responsible for forming new memories and for putting experiences in context. The hippocampus works closely with both the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. It's supposed to help you distinguish between situations that are actually dangerous and situations that just remind you of past dangers. It provides context. It says, yes, you were scared in a situation like this before, but this situation is different. You're safe now. But chronic stress and sustained anxiety can damage the hippocampus. High levels of stress hormones, particularly cortisol, can actually shrink the hippocampus over time, impairing its ability to form new memories and to contextualize experiences properly. This means that when you're chronically anxious, you might have trouble distinguishing between real threats and false alarms. Everything starts to feel equally dangerous because the part of your brain that's supposed to provide perspective isn't working as well as it should. Why understanding this helps? I know this might sound discouraging. You might be thinking, so my brain is stuck in this pattern? My amygdala is overactive and my prefrontal cortex is weak and there's nothing I can do. But that's not the end of the story. That's not even close to the end. Understanding this neurological architecture, understanding why your brain sounds false alarms, is the first step toward changing it. Because once you know what's happening, once you understand that your anxiety isn't a character flaw, but a pattern of neural activity, you can start to work with it differently. You can stop blaming yourself. You can stop thinking that you should just be able to logic your way out of anxiety or willpower your way through it. You can recognize that when your amygdala is screaming danger and your prefrontal cortex is struggling to be heard, You need more than just positive thinking. You need strategies that work with your nervous system, not against it. You can also start to have compassion for yourself. When you understand that your brain is operating from an ancient protective mechanism, one that's trying to keep you safe even when it's misfiring, it becomes easier to meet your anxiety with kindness instead of frustration. Instead of thinking, "Why am I like this? Why can't I just be normal?" You can think, "My brain is working hard to protect me. It's just a little too vigilant right now. And that's okay. I can help it find balance again." Neuroplasticity works in both directions. Yes, chronic stress can strengthen anxiety patterns, but positive experiences, deliberate practices, and new ways of relating to your thoughts and emotions can create new patterns, strengthen your prefrontal cortex, and calm your amygdala. Your brain can learn that the world isn't always dangerous. Your amygdala can become less reactive. The connection between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala can strengthen, giving you more ability to regulate your emotions, to question your fearful thoughts, to find calm even in uncertain situations. This isn't instant. It takes time, practice, patience, but it's possible. Your brain is capable of change at any age, in any circumstance. The patterns that created anxiety can be slowly, gently rewired. And the first step is simply understanding. Understanding what's happening in your brain, why it's happening, and that it's not your fault. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're experiencing a very understandable response to a complex, stressful world, mediated by an ancient brain doing its absolute best to keep you safe. We've explored what anxiety is and why your brain creates it. We've looked inside your skull at the conversation between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex, at the delicate balance that can tip into overwhelm. But anxiety isn't just in your head. It's not just thoughts and brain activity. It lives in your body too. It shows up in your racing heart, your shallow breath, your tense muscles, your churning stomach. Because when your amygdala sounds the alarm, it doesn't just send signals to your thinking brain. It sends signals throughout your entire body, preparing you for action, for survival. So let's move now from your brain to your body. Let's explore the physical cascade of anxiety, why it makes you feel the way it does, and why understanding this can help you feel less afraid of your own sensations. Take a slow breath, let your shoulders soften, and let's continue this gentle exploration together. Why does anxiety make your heart race, your chest tight, your hands shake? We've talked about what's happening in your brain, about the amygdala sounding alarms, and the prefrontal cortex trying to restore calm. But if you've ever experienced anxiety, you know it's not just a mental phenomenon. It's visceral, it's physical. It's a whole body experience that can feel overwhelming, even frightening. Your racing heart, your shallow, rapid breathing, the tightness in your chest, the trembling in your hands, the knot in your stomach, the tension in your shoulders and jaw, the dizziness, the sweating, the feeling like you might pass out or throw up, or that something terrible is happening inside your body. These sensations are real. They're not imagined. They're not all in your head in the dismissive way that phrase is sometimes used. They're the result of a sophisticated, ancient system that's designed to prepare your body for survival. Tonight, we're going to explore why anxiety feels the way it does in your body. And perhaps, when you understand what's happening, these sensations might feel a little less frightening. The marathon you never signed up for. Here's a way to think about it. When your brain perceives a threat, real or imagined, it prepares your body for intense physical activity. It's getting you ready to run, to fight, to survive. Your body is preparing for a marathon you never signed up for. Think about what your body would need to do if you actually had to run from danger. Your heart would need to pump faster to deliver oxygen and energy to your muscles. Your breathing would need to quicken to bring in more oxygen. Your muscles would need to tense, ready for action. Blood would need to be redirected from non-essential functions, like digestion, toward your major muscle groups. You need to be alert, focused, ready to react instantly. This is exactly what happens during anxiety. Your body is mobilizing all its resources for immediate, intense physical action. The only problem is there's usually no physical danger to respond to. There's no predator to run from, no immediate threat to fight. So all that energy, all that activation, has nowhere to go. It just builds and builds inside you, creating those uncomfortable, sometimes terrifying physical sensations. The two branches of your nervous system. To understand what's happening in your body during anxiety, we need to talk about your autonomic nervous system. This is the part of your nervous system that operates automatically, without your conscious control. It regulates all the functions that keep you alive without you having to think about them. Your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion, your body temperature. The autonomic nervous system has two main branches, and they work in opposition to each other, like a gas pedal and a brake pedal. The first branch is called the sympathetic nervous system. This is your gas pedal. This is what activates when your amygdala detects danger. It's your body's emergency response system, often called the fight or flight response. When it's activated, it speeds everything up, mobilizes your resources, prepares you for action. The second branch is called the parasympathetic nervous system. This is your brake pedal. This is what activates when you're safe, when you're resting, when you're digesting food or sleeping. It's often called the rest and digest response. When it's activated, it slows everything down, conserves energy, promotes healing and restoration. In a balanced, healthy nervous system, these two branches work in harmony. The sympathetic system activates when you need energy and alertness. The parasympathetic system activates when you need rest and recovery. They take turns, creating a natural rhythm of activation and relaxation throughout your day. But in anxiety, the sympathetic nervous system becomes overactive. It's like your gas pedal gets stuck and your brake pedal stops working as well as it should. Your body stays in emergency mode, even when there's no emergency. What happens in your body? Let's walk through what happens in your body when your sympathetic nervous system activates, when anxiety takes hold. Understanding each sensation, knowing why it's happening, can make it feel less frightening. Your heart starts racing, pounding hard in your chest. This happens because your sympathetic nervous system triggers the release of adrenaline, a hormone that makes your heart beat faster and harder. The purpose is to pump more blood, more oxygen, more energy to your muscles so you can run or fight. Sometimes your heart might feel like it's skipping beats or beating irregularly. This is called palpitations, and while it feels alarming, it's usually harmless. It's just your heart responding to the surge of adrenaline. Many people experiencing anxiety worry they're having a heart attack. The chest tightness, the rapid heartbeat, the sensation that something is terribly wrong with your heart. These can feel indistinguishable from cardiac symptoms. But in anxiety, your heart is actually doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's responding to the distress signal from your brain. It's not damaged. It's not failing. It's working, perhaps too enthusiastically, but working nonetheless. Your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. You might feel like you can't get enough air, like you're suffocating, like you need to gasp for breath. Some people feel a tightness in their throat, like something is blocking their airway. This happens because your body is trying to bring in more oxygen quickly. But when you breathe rapidly and shallowly, you actually disrupt the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your blood. You start breathing out too much carbon dioxide, a condition called hyperventilation. This can make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, tingly, or numb, especially in your hands, feet, and around your mouth. Many people with anxiety develop a pattern of breathing from their chest instead of their diaphragm, taking quick, shallow breaths all day long without even realizing it. This chronic pattern of breathing can actually perpetuate anxiety, keeping your sympathetic nervous system activated. Your muscles tense up, preparing for action. Your shoulders might creep up toward your ears. Your jaw might clench. Your hands might curl into fists. Your stomach might feel tight and knotted. This tension is your body getting ready to move powerfully, to fight or flee. But when that tension has nowhere to go, when you don't actually run or fight, it just stays locked in your muscles. Over time, chronic muscle tension can lead to pain, headaches, backaches, jaw problems. Your body is holding all that unreleased energy. Some people experience trembling or shaking, especially in their hands or legs. This is the result of all that muscle tension and activation. Your muscles are primed for action, and that can make them tremble. Your digestive system. Your digestion slows down or stops. Blood flow is redirected away from your stomach and intestines toward your major muscle groups. Digestion is not a priority when you're running from danger. This can cause nausea, stomach pain, that uncomfortable churning feeling. Some people lose their appetite completely when they're anxious. Others experience diarrhea as their body tries to eliminate anything unnecessary for survival. Some people experience constipation as their digestive system essentially shuts down. That feeling of butterflies in your stomach or a knot in your gut. These are literal sensations caused by the redirection of blood flow and the slowing of digestive processes. You might start sweating, even if you're not hot. This is your body's way of preparing to cool you down during intense physical activity. Some people experience this as cold sweats, clammy hands and feet. Your face might flush red, or you might become pale. Blood flow to your skin changes depending on what your body thinks it needs. Flushing can happen as blood vessels dilate. Paleness can happen as blood is redirected away from your skin toward your muscles. Some people experience tingling or numbness, especially in their extremities. This can be from hyperventilation, or from the redistribution of blood flow, or from muscle tension compressing nerves. Your senses might sharpen, become hypervigilant. Lights might seem too bright. Sounds might seem too loud. You might become hyper-focused on sensations in your body, noticing every heartbeat, every breath, every twinge. Or conversely, you might feel disconnected, foggy, unreal. This is called derealization or depersonalization, and it's your brain's way of protecting you from overwhelming experiences. If the threat feels too big, your brain might create a sense of distance, of watching yourself from outside, of the world not quite feeling real. You might feel dizzy or lightheaded, either from hyperventilation or from changes in blood pressure and blood flow. Some people feel like they might faint, though fainting from anxiety alone is actually quite rare. Here's what's crucial to understand about all these physical symptoms. They're uncomfortable, sometimes intensely so, but they're not dangerous. They're not harming you. They're your body's way of trying to help you, even when there's no actual threat to help you with. Your racing heart isn't having a heart attack. Your tight chest isn't suffocating you. Your shaking hands aren't a sign that something is wrong with your nervous system. These are all normal, adaptive responses to perceived danger. Your body is doing exactly what it's designed to do. The problem is that these sensations can be so intense, so uncomfortable, that they themselves become frightening. You might start to fear your own body's responses. You might start to interpret these sensations as evidence that something is seriously wrong with you, which triggers more anxiety, which creates more physical symptoms, which increases the fear, and the cycle continues. This is what happens in panic attacks. A panic attack is essentially your sympathetic nervous system activating to maximum intensity, creating a cascade of terrifying physical sensations. Your heart pounds. You can't breathe. Your vision narrows. You feel like you're dying or losing your mind. And because these sensations are so overwhelming, your brain interprets them as evidence of extreme danger, which makes the panic worse. But even a full panic attack, as terrible as it feels, is not dangerous. It's your body's alarm system stuck at maximum volume. It will pass. The sympathetic nervous system cannot stay activated at that intensity forever. Eventually, your parasympathetic system will kick in, your body will calm down, and the panic will subside. Understanding this doesn't make the experience less uncomfortable, but can make it less frightening. When you know that these sensations, as intense as they are just your body preparing for danger that isn't there, you can start to relate to them differently. Instead of fighting them or fearing them, you can acknowledge them. This is anxiety. This is my sympathetic nervous system. It's uncomfortable, but I'm safe. When anxiety is occasional, when your sympathetic nervous system activates briefly and then returns to baseline, your body recovers easily. The stress response is designed for short bursts. But when anxiety is chronic, when your sympathetic nervous system is activated day after day, week after week, the cost to your body accumulates. Chronic muscle tension leads to pain, headaches, jaw problems. Chronic digestive disruption leads to ongoing stomach issues, changes in appetite, nutritional deficiencies. Chronic activation of your heart and circulatory system can contribute to high blood pressure and increased risk of cardiovascular problems. Chronic disruption of sleep leaves you exhausted, impairs your immune system, affects your mood and cognitive function. Your body isn't designed to run the marathon constantly. It needs rest. It needs the parasympathetic system to activate, to restore balance, to heal and replenish. And this is why understanding the body-mind connection is so important. Because if you can learn to activate your parasympathetic system, if you can help your body find its way back to calm, you can start to break the cycle of chronic anxiety. Here's something beautiful and hopeful. While your mind can trigger anxiety in your body can also calm anxiety in your mind. The connection between your brain and your body runs in both directions. When your amygdala sounds the alarm, your body responds. But when you deliberately calm your body, when you activate your parasympathetic nervous system through specific physical actions, you send signals back to your brain that say, "We're safe. Stand down. No emergency here." This is why techniques like slow breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, gentle movement, and mindful awareness of your body can be so powerful. They're not just distractions. They're direct interventions into your nervous system, ways of physically shifting your body from sympathetic activation to parasympathetic calm. Your body is not just the victim of your anxious mind. It's also a pathway to healing. When you learn to work with your body, to listen to its signals without fear, to gently guide it back toward balance, you gain real, tangible agency over your anxiety, compassion for your physical self. So often, when people experience anxiety in their bodies, they feel betrayed by their own physiology. Why is my body doing this to me? Why can't it just work properly? But your body isn't working against you. It's working for you, with information that happens to be inaccurate. It's responding to the alarm signals from your brain, doing its absolute best to keep you safe. When you can meet your physical symptoms with curiosity instead of fear, with compassion instead of frustration, everything shifts. Instead of "my racing heart is terrible and wrong," you might think, "my heart is working hard to protect me right now. It's okay. I can help it calm down." Your body deserves kindness. It deserves gentleness. It's been carrying you through every difficult moment, doing its best with limited information, trying to keep you alive and safe. We've explored what anxiety is, why your brain creates it, and how it shows up in your body. We've looked at the cascade of physical sensations, the dance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, the ways your body prepares for danger that isn't there. So if your brain is trying to help you, even when it's misfiring, what can you do to help it back? How do you guide your nervous system toward balance? How do you teach your body that it's safe, even when your mind is convinced otherwise? That's what we're going to explore now. Practical, gentle ways to work with your nervous system, to activate that parasympathetic brake pedal, to help your body find its way back to calm. Take a slow, easy breath. Let yourself settle just a little deeper. And let's discover together what tools you already have, right here in your own body, to create the calm you're seeking. What can we do to gently guide our nervous system back to calm? We've talked about what anxiety is, why your brain creates it, and how it manifests in your body. Now comes the most practical part of our journey together. What you can actually do about it. Not in a forceful way, not by fighting against your anxiety or trying to eliminate it completely, but by gently teaching your nervous system that it's safe. Think of it like teaching a worried friend that they're safe. You wouldn't yell at them or demand they stop worrying. You'd be patient. You'd be kind. You'd offer reassurance through your words, your presence, your actions. That's exactly what we're going to do with your own nervous system. The power of your breath. The most immediate, most accessible tool you have for calming anxiety is right under your nose. Literally, it's your breath. Your breath is unique among bodily functions because it's both automatic and voluntary. Your body breathes without you thinking about it, but you can also choose to change how you breathe. And this makes breathing a powerful bridge between your conscious mind and your autonomic nervous system. When you're anxious, your breathing becomes quick and shallow, centered in your chest. This is part of the sympathetic response we talked about earlier. But here's the beautiful thing. You can deliberately slow and deepen your breathing. And when you do, you send a direct signal to your parasympathetic nervous system to activate. You're telling your body, through your breath, that there's no emergency. The technique is simple. Breathe in slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold gently for a count of 4. Then breathe out slowly through your mouth for a count of 4 or longer. The key is that your exhale should be as long as or longer than your inhale. Why does this work? When you extend your exhale, you're activating the vagus nerve, a major nerve that runs from your brain down through your body and is central to your parasympathetic nervous system. A long exhale literally stimulates the rest and digest response. You can practice this anytime, anywhere. In bed at night, when anxiety is keeping you awake. Before a stressful situation. During a moment of panic. Your breath is always with you. Always available. Always ready to help you find calm. Grounding yourself in the present. Anxiety often pulls you out of the present moment. Your mind races to the future, imagining all the things that could go wrong. Or it circles back to the past, replaying mistakes and regrets. Meanwhile, your body is here, now safe. Grounding techniques help you return to the present moment by anchoring your attention in physical, sensory experience. They interrupt the spiral of anxious thoughts by giving your mind something concrete to focus on. One of the most effective grounding techniques is called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. It engages all your senses systematically. Name 5 things you can see right now. 4 things you can touch or feel. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. 1 thing you can taste. Another powerful grounding practice is to place your feet firmly on the floor and really feel the contact. Press your feet down. Notice the texture under them, the temperature, the solid support. This simple act of feeling your connection to the ground can be remarkably calming. You can also use cold water. Splash your face with cold water or hold a piece of ice in your hand. The sudden cold sensation interrupts your anxiety response and brings your attention sharply into your body, into the present moment. These techniques work because they activate the parts of your brain responsible for sensory processing and present moment awareness, which are different from the parts generating anxious thoughts. You're literally redirecting your brain's attention. Movement as medicine. Your body is designed to move, and movement is one of the most effective ways to process the stress hormones and activation that anxiety creates. Remember, your sympathetic nervous system prepares you to run or fight. When you actually move your body, you're completing that cycle, using up the energy and activation that is nowhere else to go. This doesn't mean you need to run a marathon or engage in intense exercise. Gentle movement is often more helpful for anxiety than vigorous exercise. A slow walk, gentle stretching, yoga, even just standing up and shaking out your arms and legs. The key is to move with awareness, paying attention to the sensations in your body as you move. This combines movement with grounding, bringing you into your body and into the present moment. Sleep, the foundation of calm. Sleep and anxiety have a complicated relationship. Anxiety disrupts sleep, keeping you awake with racing thoughts and physical tension. And poor sleep makes anxiety worse, leaving you exhausted, more emotionally reactive, less able to cope with stress. Prioritizing sleep isn't just helpful for anxiety. It's essential. When you're well rested, your prefrontal cortex functions better, giving you more capacity to regulate your emotions and think clearly. Your nervous system is more balanced. Your body has had time to repair and restore itself. Create a sleep routine that signals to your body that it's time to wind down. Dim the lights in the evening. Avoid screens before bed. Keep your bedroom cool and dark. Practice your slow breathing as you lie down. Be patient with yourself if sleep doesn't come immediately. Just resting quietly, breathing slowly, is still restorative even if you're not asleep. Small actions, profound impact. Here's what I want you to understand. You have more agency than you think. Anxiety can feel overwhelming, like something happening to you that you have no control over. But you do have control, not over whether anxiety arises, necessarily, but over how you respond to it. Small, kind actions add up. One slow breath might not cure your anxiety, but practicing slow breathing regularly can gradually retrain your nervous system. One grounding exercise might not stop a panic attack, but consistently practicing grounding can make panic attacks less frequent and less intense. These aren't magic fixes. They're practices. They take time, patience, repetition, but they work. They work because they're working with your biology, with your nervous system, not against it. We've explored what you can do in practical terms to calm your nervous system, to activate that parasympathetic brake, to teach your body that it's safe. These techniques, breathing and grounding and movement and rest, they're tools. They're valuable tools. But sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is simply understand ourselves better, to shift the story we tell about our anxiety, to change our relationship with it entirely. Because anxiety isn't just something to manage or reduce. It's also something to listen to learn from, to befriend. So let's move now into perhaps the most important shift of all, reframing anxiety not as an enemy to defeat, but as an imperfect ally trying to keep you safe. Take a gentle breath, settle in, and let's explore this final perspective together. What if anxiety isn't the enemy? We've spent this evening exploring anxiety from many angles. We've looked at what it is, why your brain creates it, how it shows up in your body, and what you can do to calm it. But now I want to offer you one final perspective, perhaps the most important shift of all. What if you stopped fighting your anxiety and started listening to it? What if, instead of seeing it as a malfunction or a weakness, you saw it as an imperfect ally, doing its absolute best to keep you safe? The worried parent. Think of anxiety like a worried parent. Overprotective, sometimes exhausting, frequently inconvenient, but fundamentally motivated by love and care. A worried parent might hover too much, warn against every possible danger, imagine worst-case scenarios for every decision. They might make your life smaller in their attempt to make it safer. But you wouldn't hate that parent. You'd recognize that their worry comes from a good place, even when it's misguided. You'd set boundaries with them gently. You'd reassure them when they need it. You'd thank them for caring, even as you choose to do things they find frightening. This is how you can relate to your anxiety, not as an enemy to defeat, but as an overprotective part of yourself that needs reassurance, guidance, and sometimes gentle correction. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. I know you're worried, but I'm okay. We're okay. What anxiety is trying to tell you? When you stop fighting anxiety and start listening to it, you often find that it has something important to say. Not always, but often. Sometimes anxiety is pointing you towards something that genuinely needs your attention. A relationship that doesn't feel safe. A job that's draining you. A lifestyle that's unsustainable. A boundary you need to set. A change you need to make. When you approach anxiety with curiosity instead of resistance, you can ask, what are you trying to protect me from? What do you think I need right now? And sometimes, beneath the uncomfortable sensations and racing thoughts, you'll find a legitimate concern, a real need, something that deserves your thoughtful attention. Other times, anxiety is pointing toward old wounds, old beliefs, old patterns that no longer serve you. I'm not safe. I'm not good enough. I have to be perfect. People will leave me if I make a mistake. These beliefs formed for good reasons, often in response to real experiences, but they might not be true anymore. They might not serve you anymore. When you listen to your anxiety without judgment, when you ask it what it believes and why it's scared, you can start to gently question those beliefs. You can offer your anxious self new information, new evidence, new experiences that slowly shift those old patterns. The gift of sensitivity. People who experience anxiety are often deeply sensitive people, sensitive to their environment, to other people's emotions, to potential problems and dangers. This sensitivity can feel like a burden, especially in a world that often rewards toughness and emotional armor. But sensitivity is also a gift. It makes you attuned to nuance, to complexity, to the needs of others. It often comes with creativity, empathy, conscientiousness, depth of feeling. Many of the people who contribute the most to the world, who create the most beauty, who care the most deeply, are people who also struggle with anxiety. What if anxiety is part of the same system that makes you who you are? What if the very thing that sometimes feels like too much is also connected to your strengths, your gifts, your capacity for connection and compassion? This doesn't mean you have to suffer. It doesn't mean anxiety is good and you should embrace every uncomfortable moment. But it does mean you can hold it both in perspective. My anxiety is difficult, and it's also connected to my sensitivity and my care for the world. I can work to calm my nervous system while also honoring the part of me that feels deeply. When you stop fighting, there's a paradox at the heart of anxiety. The more you fight it, the stronger it often becomes. When you resist anxiety, when you tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way, when you try to suppress or eliminate it through sheer force of will, you often create more tension, more stress, more anxiety. But when you stop fighting, when you acknowledge anxiety without judgment, when you say, okay, you're here, I feel you, and that's all right, something shifts. The anxiety doesn't necessarily disappear, but its grip loosens. There's more space, more breath, more possibility. This is not about giving up or giving in. It's about acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean you like it or want it or think it's good. It means you stop wasting energy fighting reality. I feel anxious right now. I don't like it, but here it is. What do I need in this moment? from that place of acceptance, you can actually do something helpful. You can breathe slowly. You can ground yourself. You can move your body. You can reach out to someone. You can make a choice that serves you. But when you're locked in battle with your anxiety, all your energy goes to the fight and nothing is left for healing. The story you tell yourself about your anxiety matters profoundly. If your narrative is, "I'm broken, I'm weak, I'm fundamentally flawed," that narrative creates shame, isolation, and more anxiety. But you can choose a different story. "I have an overactive nervous system. My brain is trying very hard to protect me. I'm not broken. I'm sensitive and my alarm system is a bit too loud. And that's something I can work with. That's something I can gradually shift." Or even, "My anxiety is part of my story, part of what makes me who I am. It's taught me compassion, resilience, and self-awareness. It's pushed me to learn about my mind and body in ways I never would have otherwise. It's difficult, yes, but it's also made me who I am." The narrative you choose shapes your experience. Choose one that honors your struggle while also recognizing your strength. Choose one that sees anxiety not as your identity, but as an experience you're having, one that can change and evolve. And as we close tonight, as we come to the end of this gentle exploration, let's remember what matters most. You are not your anxiety. You are the person experiencing it, learning from it, growing through it. You are capable of change, of healing, of finding calm, even in the midst of uncertainty. Your brain is trying to protect you. Your body is doing its best. And you, in your patience and your willingness to understand yourself better, are doing something beautiful and brave. So let's bring this journey to a close with kindness, with compassion, and with the knowledge that you are, and have always been, enough. Tonight, we've explored what anxiety really is. Not as an enemy, not as a flaw, but as a protective system that lives inside you. Sometimes it's overactive. Sometimes it sounds alarms that aren't necessary, but it's never trying to harm you. It's always, in its own imperfect way, trying to keep you safe. We looked inside your brain at the amygdala, that ancient guard always scanning for threats, and at the prefrontal cortex, the wise counselor trying to restore calm. We explored how chronic stress can tip the balance between these two, how the conversation can become unbalanced, but also how it can be restored. We moved through your body, understanding why anxiety creates all those uncomfortable sensations. Your racing heart, your tight chest, your shallow breathing, your tense muscles. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your body is preparing for a marathon you never signed up for, mobilizing all its resources for action that often never comes. We discovered practical ways to work with your nervous system. Your breath, always with you, always ready to activate that parasympathetic calm. Grounding techniques that anchor you in the present moment. Gentle movement that completes the stress cycle. Sleep that restores and heals. Small, kind actions that add up over time. And finally, we reframed anxiety itself. Not as something to fight or eliminate, but as an imperfect ally. A worried parent. A sensitive system trying to protect you in a complex world. When you stop fighting it and start listening, when you meet it with curiosity instead of judgment, things can shift in ways that struggle never allowed. So what is anxiety, really? It's your brain's way of trying to help you. Imperfect, yes. Sometimes exhausting, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes misfiring in ways that make life harder instead of safer, but protective always. Always trying, in its ancient, biological way, to keep you alive, to keep you safe, to guide you away from harm. And perhaps that's the most beautiful part, knowing that even in your most anxious moments, Even when it feels like your own mind and body are working against you, part of you is actually working to keep you safe. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not weak or flawed or fundamentally wrong. You're human, beautifully, complexly, imperfectly human, with a nervous system that evolved over millions of years, doing its best to navigate a world that changed faster than biology could keep up with. And in that understanding, in that compassion for yourself, there's space for healing. There's space for change. There's space for peace. Rest well tonight. Your body knows how to find calm again. It's found it before, and it will find it again. The pathway to the parasympathetic, to rest and digest, to peace and restoration, is always there, always waiting for you to activate it. Give it time. Be patient with yourself. Healing isn't linear. Some nights will be easier than others. Some days the anxiety will feel manageable, and other days it will feel overwhelming. That's okay. That's part of being human. Give it kindness. Speak to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love who's struggling, with gentleness, with understanding, with compassion. You deserve that kindness, especially from yourself. And remember, you're not alone in this. Millions of people around the world are lying awake right now, feeling what you feel, struggling with what you struggle with. You're part of something vast and human, and there's comfort in that, knowing that even in your loneliest moments, you're connected to all of us who understand. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. Thank you for your willingness to explore, to understand, to be gentle with yourself. That takes courage. That takes strength. Sleep well. Breathe slowly. And trust that your body, your beautiful, protective body, knows the way back to calm. Good night.